Imagine showing up to your own house, knocking on your own front door, and the person who opens it isn't you, it's someone else, and everyone inside is cheering for them. That's the closest comparison I can make to what Julia Grabher is living through right now, and honestly, when you sit with that image for a moment, it tells you everything about just how wild the situation in Austria has become. Because what is happening at the Ladies' Linz Open is not something you could have scripted. It's not something tournament directors plan for, or players prepare for, or fans anticipate. It just happened, the way only the most extraordinary moments in sport ever do, quietly at first, then all at once, like a wave that nobody saw coming until it was already crashing over everything. And at the center of it all, calm and focused and completely unaware of the chaos swirling around her, is a 20-year-old from the Philippines named Alex. Just Alex. Because at this point, one name is more than enough. You already know who we're talking about. The story of how we got here matters, though, because this didn't come from nowhere. Alex's rise through professional tennis has been one of the most genuinely fascinating storylines in sport over the past year, not just because of the tennis, which has been exceptional, but because of the human story wrapped around it. A young Filipina making her way through a sport that has historically not looked like her, playing in front of crowds that keep growing bigger and louder and more passionate with every single match she wins, carrying the weight of millions of people who see themselves in her and who want her to succeed more than they've ever wanted anything from a sporting event in their lives. That's not hype. That's not marketing. That's real, and it's been building steadily for months now, until it arrived at this moment, in this city, in this tournament, and absolutely took over. Let's start with what we know about the ticket situation, because the numbers are genuinely staggering. When the draw was announced and people found out that Julia Grabher, an Austrian player competing on home soil, would be opening her campaign against Alex, the tickets for that first-round match went on sale, and they were gone almost immediately. Not slowly, not over a few days. Gone. Snapped up by fans who had clearly been waiting and watching and ready to move the moment the opportunity appeared. And here's the detail that changes the whole picture. The detail that makes this story something beyond just a popular player selling tickets. The overwhelming majority of those tickets did not go to Austrian fans. They didn't go to locals coming out to support their home nation's representative in her own tournament. They went to Alex's fans, people who either live in Austria or traveled specifically to be there, who want nothing more than to be in that stadium, making noise, creating that wall of sound and energy and emotion that has become the defining feature of every match Alex plays. Grabher is going to walk out onto that court and hear the roars going to the other side of the net. She is going to feel the electricity in the room and know, without any ambiguity, that it is not for her. She is going to be the visiting player in her own country. Sit with that for a second. Genuinely sit with it, because it's one of the most psychologically complex situations a professional athlete can find themselves in. Home advantage in tennis is not just a phrase coaches use to make players feel comfortable. It's real and it's documented, and it matters in ways that go beyond what's visible on a scoreboard. When you play at home, you sleep in your own bed, you eat familiar food, you walk into a venue where the crowd recognizes your face and knows your story and is invested in you. You feel supported in this deep and fundamental way that gives you an extra gear when the match gets tight and the nerves start creeping in. Grabher has played her whole career knowing that one day she would get a moment like this, a first-round match at the Linz Open in front of an Austrian crowd, and she could draw on all of that goodwill and history and local pride to push herself through. But that moment has been taken from her, not by anything cruel or deliberate, but simply by the sheer gravitational pull of the phenomenon that follows Alex wherever she goes. And that phenomenon now has a name that everyone in tennis knows: the Eala effect. It was coined earlier this year when Alex made her debut at Indian Wells, and the demand to watch her play reached a level that nobody, not the tournament, not the analysts, not even the most enthusiastic fans, was fully prepared for. One match. That's all it took. One match generated $5 million in ticket sales, a number so extraordinary that people assumed it was a misprint when it first appeared. It wasn't. $5 million from a single first-round match, and the shockwaves from that number traveled through every corner of professional tennis and out into the wider sporting world, because that kind of figure belongs to Grand Slams, semifinals, and championship finals, and historic career moments. Not first-round matches, not debuts. And yet there it was, sitting in the data, impossible to argue with or explain away. Indian Wells scrambled. They hadn't prepared for the scale of what arrived, and the crowds that descended on the venue stretched the infrastructure in ways the organizers hadn't anticipated. But what emerged from that chaos was something important, a recognition across the sport that Alex wasn't just a promising young player who happened to have enthusiastic fans. She was a genuine cultural movement wearing a tennis outfit, and the sport needed to start paying attention. Tournament after tournament has felt it since. The Dubai Tennis Championships, the Australian Open, where she was placed on too small a court, and the overflow of fans watching on screens outside became a story in itself. The Miami Open, where the noise from her matches could reportedly be heard from the hotel, where players staying on site were walking past their windows and hearing that roar and knowing, without checking their phones, that Alex was on court. Where's she playing right now? They didn't need to ask. They could hear it. Jessica Pegula, who is not a player given to exaggeration and who has played in packed stadiums all over the world throughout her career, sat down and talked about what it was actually like to face Alex at Miami. And what she described was something qualitatively different from anything she had experienced before. She talked about a crowd that wasn't just watching a tennis match, but was emotionally living every single point, reacting to every winner and every error and every long rally with an intensity she had never felt directed at an opponent before. Pegula said it plainly. She played Alex when she first broke out and the crowd was against her, and she found herself asking, where did these people come from? That question, where did these people come from, might be the most honest articulation of the Eala effect that anyone has offered. Because the fans don't just appear at big tournaments with big histories and big prize money. They appear everywhere. They show up at smaller events, at unexpected venues, in countries that have no particular connection to the Philippines and no obvious reason to generate this kind of turnout. They show up in Austria. And when they show up, they don't half commit. They are organized and passionate and loud and completely devoted to supporting Alex through every point of every set of every match she plays. So now we arrive back in Linz, and we look at the situation that Sandra Riel finds herself navigating as tournament director of the Ladies Linz Open in its 35th year of existence. Riel has not been subtle about how she feels about having Alex in the draw. She has been openly enthusiastic in a way that tournament directors don't usually allow themselves to be about individual players, because there's a diplomacy required in that role, a need to seem equally invested in everyone competing. But Riel has set that aside, and honestly you understand why, because what Alex is bringing to this tournament is transformative in the most literal sense. The attention the Linz Open is receiving right now, the media coverage, the social media conversation, the ticket sales, the global interest in a tournament that, with all due respect, doesn't typically generate this kind of noise, it's all flowing from one source. Riel confirmed that Alex will be placed on the biggest court available. She confirmed that the atmosphere around Alex's match is going to be unlike anything this tournament has experienced in 35 years. She went further and said she would personally be there to welcome Alex, which is the kind of statement that signals clearly where the emotional and organizational priority of this tournament currently sits. And none of that is Grabher's fault, and none of it is Riel's fault, and none of it is anyone's fault really, because you don't manufacture what's happening around Alex. You can't plan it or engineer it or buy it with a marketing budget. It grows organically from something real, from a genuine connection between a player and the people who watch her, from a story that resonates across culture and language and geography in a way that only the rarest sporting figures ever manage to achieve. Think about the players who have generated this kind of global devotion and what they had in common. They all had something that went beyond technique or tactics or ranking points. They had a story. They had a presence. They made you feel something when you watched them play, even if you'd never followed tennis before in your life. Even if you had no idea what a tiebreak was or why a score of 40 all has its own special word. Alex has that. She has it in abundance, and the fans who have found her have found in her something they wanted to protect and celebrate and amplify. That's why they travel. That's why they buy tickets the moment they go on sale. That's why Grabher's home crowd moment in Linz is becoming Alex's moment instead. Now let's talk about the tennis itself, because underneath all of the cultural phenomenon and the economic impact and the ticket sale records and the crowd noise, There's a player who has to go out there and perform. And what's been remarkable about Alex's season is that the tennis has matched the hype, which is not always the case when a player becomes this kind of sensation. Sometimes the story outgrows the substance. Sometimes the narrative machine gets so loud that when you actually watch the player, you find yourself slightly underwhelmed, slightly aware of the gap between what was being promised and what's being delivered. That has not happened with Alex. Her results this season have been genuinely impressive, and the quality of opponents she has beaten reflects a player who is not just popular but dangerous, not just exciting to watch but difficult to play against. Her win over Coco Gauff stands as one of the most discussed results of her young career, because Gauff is not a player who loses to anyone without making them earn every single point. Gauff is athletic and competitive and mentally tough and ranked among the best players in the world, and Alex beat her. That result did something important for the wider perception of Alex's game. It moved the conversation from could she eventually compete at this level to she is competing at this level right now and she is winning. And once that conversation shifts, it doesn't shift back. The fans who were already there dug in deeper. The curious observers became converts. And the players who hadn't fully studied her game started paying closer attention, because results against Gauff demand that kind of attention. So when Grabher looks across the net at Alex and Linz, she is not looking at a player riding fan enthusiasm to victories she hasn't earned. She is looking at someone who has beaten some of the best players in the world this year, who has proven she belongs in every conversation about the direction of women's tennis, and who will be playing in front of a crowd that is completely and utterly on her side. That combination, the talent and the crowd support working together, is formidable in a way that goes beyond the sum of its parts. Because crowd support in tennis is not passive. It's not like a painting on a wall that looks nice but doesn't do anything.